I need everyone's attention today of all days. If you are in transitional housing or some level of ending homelessness, we need you to take action today. There is something happening in our country right now that will fully impact homelessness on levels that we're not going to be able to contain if it is done today. HUD is currently considering a drastic change that could impact permanent supportive housing funding across this country. We're not talking about a few thousand people impacted. We're talking hundreds of thousands of people who will be impacted if they move forward with this decision. There is, and before we get into the details, let me just say, today's episode, we're going to talk about the full impact that this action could do and what we can do to change it. So let's jump right in. Now, let me give you some facts. We know right now, because of the shutdown, HUD is considering a major cap on permanent supportive housing funds. Those funds go through the continuum of care, and they are wanting to minimize the amount of money that's going out right now for permanent supportive housing. If you don't understand what permanent supportive housing is, it's a long-term strategy that is here to help people who've been chronically homeless for years or living with disabilities to be able to get the support that they need. So that is what is at risk. Currently, we have 87% that goes to permanent supportive housing, and they're proposing that it be cut down to 30%. So we're talking about literally 2/3 of the funding that was going to permanent supportive housing now being eliminated, will be capped at 30%. To have something like that happen, not just in your community, but across this country, is going to put such a strain on our ecosystem. And once you understand the strain that could impact, we have to do something today. So please stay on till the end so I can tell you what you need to do to make sure this is not our reality, that there is not a cap placed on permanent supportive housing. So, and I'm just hearing, because this is rumored, and we already know during a shutdown things can happen, and I need us to make sure that this funding stays in place for those of you who are entering into this space for the first time, wanting to be a transitional housing provider, wanting to have someone who wants to operate a facility that really helps people in transition. And then once you sort of see how permanent supportive housing relates to us, you'll better see how something like this could fully impact our ecosystem. So we need to make sure that specifically HUD renews that for the next 12 months at least, till we can figure out some next steps going forward. So now that you understand, first of all, what they're proposing, which is a 2/3 cut in the budget going to permanent supportive housing, let me tell you why that matters, first of all, to those of us who are in transitional housing. Because once you understand that even though you might not be a HUD-funded program, like if you are currently operating right now, you've got your systems in place, you've got funding coming in regularly, and you do not receive funding from HUD, it still impacts you. And the reason why it impacts you is because once you understand you are connected to that ecosystem, the things that you offer, let's say that you have an amazing program that gets results and transforms lives and you impact people on a positive level. But there are some people who may graduate from your program that need to go into permanent supportive housing. That is permanent. What you offer is transitional. So if you don't have any funding available to programs because it's been cut, now you're going to be bottlenecked. You're going to be at a position where not only do you have to help your people who graduate, who get into a supportive model that they've created, you've taught them how to sustain themselves or taught them how to do more than just survive but to thrive. What's happening to those individuals? Because once you create a program, understand your program, there may be people who don't go fully through your program. They have to have someplace to go. So once you understand that when those cuts happen, that impacts you. It also impacts your ability to be able to get referrals, because when you're in a system such as this, and when the COC, let's say that they have all the housing that they need, those individuals need to go somewhere, and some people might qualify for your programming. Well, if they've had to cut funding and they have to slash costs, where are they going to do it? And they're going to dry up with those partnerships. They're not going to want to create a partnership with you because their funding is now limited. Those are things that impact your ability if this happens. You will not have the referrals that you're used to having as an operator. It also, as I was saying earlier about your residents, their ability to be able to get into another level of housing that is permanent because they can't finish what you've started, that impacts them. So those things are the things that significantly impact you as an operator if those funds are decreased. And the other thing that it does, and I already understand what it's like to be in this space and the pressures that you feel in transitional housing, you're going to have added pressure onto you as a provider just because of those cuts. Think about it. You've got hundreds of thousands of people now who had housing that no longer have housing, right? And who do you think they're going to turn to? They're going to turn to those who have programs that are set up and structured without COC funding. And we in this space are creative in the way in which we create funding, and we cannot absorb hundreds of thousands of people across the country because we don't even have enough housing that currently exists right now. We don't have a lot of providers that are already doing this space right now. So that may sound like a plus to you because now you're in demand, but demand and pressure, you got to weigh that and weigh the cost for that. And you don't want to have to consider changing your program to accommodate this demand. But that is what will happen if funding is cut. So I personally like to keep my peace. I want to help you keep your peace and to not be in a position where you're overwhelmed. I want you to be able to not only build and grow, but build and grow with less stress, and you're doing what you love. I don't want to see you overwhelmed, all because of a system that is now crippled because funding has been taken from it. So that is extremely valuable. Now, another thing that this does when you lose funding is when you look at the network that you're creating, because when you get referrals that are coming in, that's wonderful, but you're creating a partnership with the continuum of care. It's really hard to be able to move forward, and you end up hurting the movement ultimately because funding has been eliminated. And when you minimize not only the movement, but your connections to agencies in this continuum that we're creating, it's hard to restore from that. I have seen it firsthand when individuals lose housing or when they lose funding for something, the immediate shutdown that does can be such an impact to what it is that you're building and how you move forward. It actually stunts growth. So all the growth that we have made to this point in our continuum of cares across the country will be significantly impacted to the point where if they're not stunted, they can go backwards and regress because they're literally trying to, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? So being able to create a system that complements each other is so critical. And transitional housing, even though I will say over the years, that the value of transitional housing has changed over the years in HUD's definition of transitional housing. Now everybody's on it. Everybody's talking about, oh, we need transitional housing. Yeah, we've needed it all along, but funding didn't indicate that. But now that they're making these cuts, I don't want to see it get to the point where the things that are necessary to our ecosystem are now compromised because we're losing 2/3 of our funding for permanent supportive housing. Now, let me stress, we're talking about existing programs. We're not talking about adding any additional. Now, if you know where we are right now, We already are suffering across this country not having enough permanent supportive housing models. So everyone's actively creating the permanent supportive housing, they're creating the transitional housing, we're learning to work together. But when you take most of that funding from that system, oh my gosh, the chaos. So my prayer is that we can jump in immediately and make an impact in this area before they make decisions that we can't turn around. Now, before we jump into talking about what I need you to do, because please stay on until I tell you what you need to do today to make this stop and to make sure they understand what we need to do. Let me help you understand that how this impacts our moral positioning and our mission, how all of this stuff impacts everything that we're doing. Because remember, we're talking about people. We're talking about people's lives. We're not talking about just funding. So when you understand what we're talking about is being able to impact people, everything that is a part of that matters. And we're giving people who need a second chance, people who are able bodies to be able to impact things moving forward. So if we're talking about impacting people on a grand scale like this, it's so necessary that we can continue that movement forward. And I don't want to see something like this impact our mission and impact what's the right thing for us to do across this country. Because we are truly more than being in a position of ending homelessness. We are in a position of changing people's lives. You know, I want to be more than a person who is managing that system. I want to be the one who is impacting it and that we defend it at all costs. So if you are there with me to want to not only help people deal with the homelessness or help get people in position where they're no longer homeless, but you want to impact them on a big level, then these are the things that I know you can do. What you need to do today, pick up your phone. I want you to call the switchboard, the Capitol switchboard. That number is 202-224-3121. And when you call, you want to talk with your senator and representative for your state. And you want to say this exactly. Well, you can frame it however you want to. And I would get an email. I would get a phone call and an email. I would do both of these. And you're going to say that you're calling to urge that whoever the representative is, your senator is for your state, to protect permanent supportive housing. You want to say, please include a provision in the continuum resolution requiring HUD to renew all existing continuum of care grants for 1 year, and that over hundreds of thousands of people are depending on it. So when you can say that and you can email your state representative, your senator, specifically with those details, then you can help move the mark forward. But don't stop there. I want you to then send and share it with the people who you know and love. Go on your Facebook. Go on your Instagram. Those of you who are regularly posting about random things and recipes and all this other wonderful stuff, post on this. Cut and paste this. You can cut and paste this message right here for them to be able to hear and share in your community, because it matters. This matters. And I want to see us moving forward and reaching out to our state representatives and to our senators and letting them know that we need them to provide this provision in that continuing resolution that is going to include that requirement. We need that funding for permanent supportive housing. When you do that, they must take action. And I would encourage everyone you know to do that. Even the people who hear my voice, the word passed down to you, you do the same thing that they did with you. Let's make this happen now, because this is the time in history that we can make a full impact. That is a lot of money to lose impacting current programs. I need you to understand that. So once you know how something like this can hurt our country for those who are homeless, those who want to prevent homelessness, those who want to impact those who want a second chance, this is the action now that you can take as an individual to make that change happen. Please move forward on these actions. And I would encourage you, if you already have programs that are in place, you need to do it too. If you have a permanent supportive housing program today, you need to reach out to the residents in the program, to your partners in the program, and say, we need you to do this action. When you do that, and when you share this with all of your friends, imagine the movement that we are going to make across this country to make sure that action is taken on behalf of permanent supportive housing. So I'm excited that you heard me today. If there's information that you have questions about, go ahead and put them in the comments. I would love to hear from you. If you have not joined my school community, so those of us in this space, because we talk this stuff all day, every day. There are purpose-driven leaders here that are hearing this information on a regular basis in my private community. Join that private community today. That's tonyschool.com, TONISKOOL.com. When you join, you will be a part of other people who want to make an impact across this country toward not only ending homelessness, but transforming lives, because we want to create programs that fully support people in not just surviving, but thriving. And if you want to be a part of that, or at least just be a part of the collaboration of what we do, then join our community today. Hopefully you enjoyed this message, and I'll look forward to seeing you in our school community.